As well, so I got a request earlier to break down GBP JPY. I'm going to be doing 3 of these every single day, so you guys can obviously learn, what potentially might be happening and why. So if I'm coming on a clear chart that I don't trade often, I want to look at monthly or weekly levels. I want to see where prices reacted. I want to identify, certain areas. So you can see here, right, price hasn't been like all yen pairs. Price hasn't been this high since 2007. I think USC JPY is in the 80s, the 1980s. So price obviously hasn't been this high, especially with pound yen. Yen needs that intervention overall, so I'm expecting a bit of a drop to the downside. However, pound is very, very strong. You can see, you could even start by marking this like monthly trend up here. Look at this, beautiful. It's just trending to the upside, won't stop, can't stop. So we want to then identify some levels here that potentially markets might react to. So this might be one. I'm going to do monthlies in yellow. All right, so monthlies in yellow. I'm then going to put another one down here because that looks pretty good. You can see multiple rejections around here. You want to also round them up or down, so 93,900. We've got 214 probably is a good one. So that's obviously where we're currently breaking out here. Let's mark one higher, so we've got one higher as well. We don't want to go too high. Let's do 224. 224. Okay, something like this. There we go. Now let's have a look a little bit closer. Let's zoom down a little bit more. So go on a weekly, just have a little look at what's been happening. Is there any kind of areas around here which are going to be important? This we can probably, I'd say we'll probably keep it where it is. And I think we're pretty happy with all of this. Might be able to whack one in here if you want a slightly smaller time frame. It's just somewhere like this. What's that? Let's have a look here. Yeah, 29,100. There we go. Nice round number there. So we're currently kind of stuck between all of these, different kind of levels here. We got 209,100, which you can see is rejected. We got three kind of base levels here, all right. And obviously higher time frame, we are 100% in an uptrend. You look at the daily though. And you could argue potentially we've made a nice downtrend here. All right, there's a little bit of support. We could highlight this on a daily in regards to, is it coming up to that area? There's a lot of resistance here. You can see price drove up here, drove back down. It's tried to break it a few times. Once it broke, it retested, come up. Once it broke through here again on this daily, where does it come up and retest? So that's pretty key. This I would class as one move here. You could, if you wanted to, add a Fibonacci. Remember, we've already done our macro outlook here. All right, macro outlook is yen needs to strengthen, although pound is particularly strong. However, we have made a new low, as you can see here. Price was driving to the upside. You could argue that's the current kind of trend. It's a little bit messy. Then we had this one nice drive here on a daily time frame. So that might be potentially, let me mark, and this is getting a little bit messy here, but I'm going to mark this in a nice bright color. I normally mark them yellow because I like to call it the golden zone, but let's mark it orange. All right. Let's go down at time frames, see how everything's happening. Still obviously happy. Remember, before a big move, you have consolidation here, all right, and a breakout. But there wouldn't have been anywhere for me personally to want to trade. I'm going to remove this here because I'm obviously happy with this area. I'm going to remove this here as well. I am actually happy anywhere in this area to look to, a shorter trade. We have busted up. We've had our consolidation here. We've busted up again. So where could we potentially be looking for here? Potentially a little bit higher and potentially a little bit lower. So something like this is what I would be looking for here. I want to see, this is our kind of make or break area. I always like to have, no man's land and, make or break areas. All right, so I'll be looking at two trades here. If we get some nice consolidation, we could potentially be looking to travel this down into this area. Nice 1 to 3. It would be a swing. If you wanted to do it a bit smaller, you could potentially target something like this, but you'd need to be pretty accurate, and you could wait for a nice 1 to 2. That'd be a 275 pip trade, or if you want a nice swing, you could swing it down into this area. Nice one, probably want to be above this area here. All right, that will be option number 1. All right, option number 2 is a bit trickier. All right, because we do have all of this resistance here. We got one here. I'm just going to make these a bit smaller, and then we got one here as well. All right, so we do have two pretty heavy areas. So I would actually probably want these to break. All right, if I was being honest, I'd probably want these to break and then come and retest into this area and then look to buy from here. So a little bit more of like a higher time frame trade, but that's what I would be looking for here. But obviously I'd want this area then to kind of hold, you know, and hold pretty well. But as our overall macro outlook is yen is due to, you know, strengthen. We've obviously had weak GDP. We've got a lot of pressure on them. They don't normally raise interest rates, so if they do, then it's going to be a big deal and it's going to strengthen yen. And remember, we're at the levels of 2007 here. So, you know, there is a potential big move to the downside. You know, 768 pips is massive. So let's wait and see. But those would be my two options here on GBP, JPY.